these tax what's happened. The latest tax cut. Once again, those at the very top get the biggest breaks. And what do we have to show for it? Even our Republican friends are now beginning to admit there's no. voluntary thing. When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it the third time, and I tried it the fourth time.
MLK contributor. There we are. We have a long desk now. We have a long desk. Woohoo! That means Mrs. Thomas has her own space and she's just not sitting on the corner, on the side. All right. MLK Contributor Appreciation Special, the first one in the new environment, in a new place, in a new state.
Well, you did one last week by yourself.
But not together. It wasn't a tandem. It was just...
That's why I said by yourself.
Yeah. So the first co-ed Contributor Appreciation Special with Mrs. Thomas and, of course, me, Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Soapbox.
Gardenum says I need my own mic.
You do need your own mic.
Gardenum, can you send me one? I'll give you the post office box.
My name is Jamal Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. This is my lovely wife, Mrs. Thomas. This is a Contributor Appreciation Special, and I'm going to let you do your spiel. I'm trying to, you know.
Oh, okay. So if you are not aware, well, it's been a little shaky like the last couple of weeks between the move and everything that's been going on. But weekly, there is typically a show where Jamal takes time out to say thank you for everyone who contributes to the channel, whether it be PayPal, Patreon, Streamlabs, Super Chat. And so we put a post on the Patreon platform to allow patrons to give us their topic suggestions, and we pull from that content to get today's fuel for the show. I don't know where to look. There's so much going on.
It took me a while. Like, there are plenty of videos where I'm doing this. I'm like looking at the wrong thing, and I'm like, oh, right, the camera's there. Usually my old setup, the camera was associated with the computer itself. Like, so it was sitting
right on top of the camera.
So you only had to look directly at the computer. Well, I have multiple video screens up. So there's like a computer, a video, and then the camera sitting in the middle.
There's a lot happening
there.
There's
a lot happening.
I'm getting cross-eyed and looking all over the place. That's why. But welcome to Contributor Appreciation. Sorry that it has been a little wonkish lately, but we are here to give you your content for the day. If you are not familiar with what Patreon platform is, you can become a patron and you say, hey, I like the content. I want to make sure that this content creator is able to continue to create content. So I am going to pledge a monetary amount, whether it be $1, $2, $10, every dollar helps, but it's a monthly donation that comes directly to Jamal in lieu of all of the shenanigans that happens with his YouTube channel so that he can still continue to create content. And so if you are a patron, make sure that you log on to the Patreon platform to check for the post. And even if the post isn't up there, because sometimes it's a little late, because that's my job, so sometimes it's a little late, so feel free to send your post to him through Gmail, or your topic through Gmail, or just create a post on your own and we'll see it. But otherwise,
you know, the funny part about that is you're like my employee, because I pay her for the services.
I ain't got paid since 2019.
What the hell ever? I pay you each month. Now the catch here is, I
haven't done anything in the last month. I'm going to her
room and I'm like, hey, what are the videos? I'm like her boss. I'm a capitalist?
I'm the boss.
A good capitalist where I work you for like 20 hours. No, I give her $15 an hour. Ish. That's an ish. She's my wife, so I can pay her less.
Ish. But yeah, so welcome to Contributor Appreciation.
Yes.
What else, babe? We're
gonna get started. Anything else? Let's get started. So there are a few good ones, and some of these I were going to do as separate videos, but we're here, so let's do them. First of all, before we do anything else.
Oh. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, you want me to do a drum roll? I don't know if I can do it.
Jaya Paul. I'm all in for Bernie Sanders. For President of the United States, Bernie Sanders has the bold passion, authenticity, and clarity that working people across the country desperately needs. We are building a progressive movement that will bring justice and opportunity and transform this country.
Join us.
Join us. Now, there were questions about what Jay Paul was going to do. I did this video, so I'm not going to go fully into it. But Jay Paul is the one that wrote the House version of Medicare for All.
Right.
However, when Warren came out with her Medicare for All plan, Jay Paul said...
She kept backing it. And
she kept backing it.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, Jay Paul... And look, I kind of get it, even though I don't entirely agree with it. For the first time, lefties, the Progressive Caucus, lefties, have a champion. Meaning this is not you're in a corner relegated to not being able to engage politically, just kind of, screaming in the wind in the shadows, and they're like, see those stupid lefties. None of that. Sanders is in number 2 spot. I gotta be honest. His methodology, his argument for winning is to expand the electorate. Meaning it is very difficult for pollsters to entirely gauge what his support is. I mean, he's talking about breaking youth vote and all of these people who are just disenchanted with the political space into the political space.
Right.
And to some degree, you can see it happening and working in Iowa. I mean, ultimately, many of the people said this was their first time doing it, and it was a large number of people who were doing it. He was able to expand the political space, at the very least the way it looks. And so, up to this point, based on RCP, he is winning in Iowa. As far as I remember, there's a Digi poll that recently came out, and I'll explain it later on. It's like 300 people. Like the overwhelming majority of the people are over 50. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's a Digi poll. Guess who's running with it, though? CNN. CNN is running with it like it's the word of God.
Shocketh.
Yeah, a shock. Totally shocked. So, whoa, Biden has taken the lead over Sanders? What just happened? Oh, this. Oh, I see. One poll came out. Or 2 polls came out. All right.
It says through the 18th, the January 18th. Okay, so what the hell are we looking
Well,
at?
fair enough. But let's say Biden and Sanders have been jockeying first
so
and
that's
second
the real
in
clear
Iowa.
politics.
That's RCP.
Okay.
RCP gives the average of the polls.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Something happened over the last 2 days. But nevertheless, 1 and 2 in Iowa. Number 1, as far as I know, in New Hampshire, unless that's changed over the last 2 days. But I hope you get my point. His theory of the case is that the only way for me to win is to expand the electorate. I would say his theory of the case is right. His theory of the case is right. So if he's going to win, he's going to bring far more people into the political space that was there prior. And so we are going to see whether that works in 2 weeks when he goes to Iowa. Right now. So Jay Paul, welcome to the team. Welcome to the team. Question. Is this coincidental?
What? That it's right before Iowa?
Right before Iowa, but also Warren. It was only a couple of days ago where the whole sexist liar charge came out that essentially Sanders told her that a woman couldn't win. Sanders was like, I never said that. That never said that.
Jay Paul's like, let me shut the shit down.
Potentially. I mean, there were a lot of people who were angry at Warren over this. I can go through my Twitter thread and, people who are in politics, people who were like, I was backing Warren, people who backed Warren, by the way, or thought Warren was a viable second choice, immediately, done. I can show them to you. Rational National is a channel. He's a Canadian guy. He was boosting Warren at one point, and then he's like, and then comes out with a post that says, yeah, if you guys needed any more evidence that Warren is phony, and people were like,
what do you mean any more evidence?
They was like, what are you talking about, dude? You were backing her for the last summer months. Get out of here. You can't join this train now.
Show the tape.
Yeah, right. Show the tape. You can show, the tapes of backing, or at the very least on Twitter. My point is, you had a lot of people who considered Warren a viable number 2 that said, this is an off-ramp. I'm done. Cenk Uygur has been out there still boosting Warren, trying to come up with some conspiracy theory that the media leaked this stuff. All right, fair enough. Do what you need to do to assuage your own thing in backing this particular person. Whatever. Same thing with Ryan Grimm. They're covering for her. But Jay Paul comes out and with Sanders. Now, if you're in the left and you're one of these that have languished in the shadows for 40 years, and you get the opportunity where you have 2 candidates who, for the most part, are taking 60% of the vote total, meaning a majority. Mm-hmm. Those 2 candidates are talking about similar things. And, right, I know you knew 60% was the majority. My bad. I didn't mean to, like, that's the majority, by the way, just in case you don't know that. And those 2 people getting that vote total, and she's like, we're in the room. Pocan, we're in the room. many of these other lefties, we're in the room.
Right.
And then you start thinking, all right, what's the best way to nurse this and push this forward? Because what she knows is if they had a Bernie Sanders presidency, she will be in the room in regards to the conversations, especially from the standpoint of the House of Representatives. Now, with that, you think to yourself, we can't eat each other. That's what you think. We can't eat each other. Yes, technically, he could, but in political sense,
Not so much.
not so much. And if you eat each other, what you're going to end up with is Joe Biden winning. Now, she might not be wrong on this point. Like, she has a point. I think some people have a point on this. Meaning, if you get a situation where both candidates destroy one another, then you end up with a Biden. The problem here is, Warren being in the race could do the exact same thing. Understand what I mean? Warren is eating into Sanders' vote total. And the reason I say she's eating into his vote total is because he's clearly in the number 2 spot.
Right.
The public trusts him more on healthcare, the public trusts him more on environment, they trust him more on the economy. They trust him more across the board than her. They trust him from the standpoint of authenticity. He's making more money than she is. She was out there begging for cash.
Right.
And she, at this point, clearly, just by her antics, is somewhat desperate in regards to the campaign. She's been flailing to and forth, not able to get any momentum back, and now you have this desperate sexist liar charge that you put out there. And so it becomes clear on who the person is. The longer she stays in a race and eats his vote total, it hurts him. It hurts him. So whether the people attack each other or whether she just stays in a race, both of those things are negative for Sanders.
Wait, because it seems like we're veering from
I guess
topic number one.
No. My point is, Jaya Paul, why did she come out now? And is she coming out now in order to kind of make that point of, I disagree with what Warren did here.
Okay.
You're tarnishing my guy. You're tarnishing the guy.
Right.
And you're tarnishing the guy that's in the number 2 spot, potentially in the number 1 spot in many of these states. I can't abide this. And the charge of him being a sexist and then a woman coming out to back him. Especially a woman this high profile.
I got you.
That's my point.
I thought you were going into one of the other topics. And I was
No.
slow down.
I was being very specific, even though I have a winding way of speech to try to get around to my point in order to kind of explain it fully.
I've been here, babe. I know.
Yeah.
All right, so really quick to address a couple of the comments.
But shout out to Jay Paul.
Diana Scare says Rational National has always backed Sanders.
No.
for president.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm saying he considered her a viable number 2.
Oh, Warren.
Yeah. He considered her viable number 2. It's not that I'm saying that he backed Warren. And if I did, I just misspoke.
Okay.
I meant that he, along with a lot of people, considered number 2. For example, Uger, Grimm, all of them backed Sanders also. But do they consider Warren a viable number 2? Yes,
Right, I
they do.
understand what you're saying.
And in doing so, would they defend her? Yes, they would. That's the point that I'm kind of making here. I'm saying she should not have been defended. Look at look at where we are. I mean, for fuck's sake, we are at a time in history where you have an opportunity to get something legitimate accomplished, not bullshit stuff, not Obama hope and change nonsense, not incrementalism. You have somebody who said billionaires shouldn't exist, period, and then leaves the room. There's nothing, you don't have to dick around with it. Bolivia's a coup, period, leaves the room.
Yeah.
Not, he's a horrible dick, blah, blah, blah. No, it's a coup. Across the board, we need to increase the minimum wage $15 an hour. He was out of power and was still able to get Amazon to increase the wage $15 an hour. Not just here, in the UK also. I had somebody say, yeah, we love Sanders here. He got our wages up. I mean, I'm trying to make the point to you that for the first time in your lifetime, you have somebody who is authentically on your side, unabashedly. Billionaires shouldn't exist. We need an economy that works for the middle class. And if you go back and listen to some of the shit he was saying before, talking about the coups in South America and all this other stuff, he hasn't changed. Like, he may have taken on a political caliber to get from point A to point B, and he understands he's been in Congress enough to know how to play that game. But for the most part, he's still him. He says it all the time. I can show you the clips where he said Democratic Party is intellectually bankrupt. Like, this is the same Sanders. I mean, his whole entire point was to drag the country to the left, to give it something that he thought it needed. The catch here is, in 2016, he thought he was just giving a point of view that was contrary to Clinton. In 2020, he comes to win it. That's a difference. Why would you pass up this opportunity where you have a focal point, somebody who's pushing for Medicare for all, expansion of getting rid of college debt, all of these things that your progressive priorities? Why would you waste that on Warren? It's an untrustworthy quantity. Why would you waste that? Don't get me wrong. It's not that Sanders infinitely wins. That's not it. But don't you want to go down with the person who believes it.
Most in line.
He's most authentic. He has the best chance of winning from a standpoint of fundraising and everything else. Why wouldn't you want that guy to be your lightning rod? And why would you waste that on somebody who you can't trust and has horrible political instincts? I mean, for fuck's sake, she had a Native American DNA test. And then wasn't Native American.
All right, I have a super chat to go.
I'm just making a point. Okay. Shout out to J. Paul.
Okay. So Rob R says, Zach Hudek, thank you, Rob R, for this first super chat. Rob R says, Zach Hudek asked Warren, how could the American people...
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were going somewhere else. I'm sorry. I thought you were going somewhere, because I have the video up.
I'm literally reading a super chat.
I have the video. So, but go ahead. Read the super chat. I have the video up. My bad. I didn't mean to shush you. I know women feel some way about that.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I don't want to be shushed by a man.
Zach Hudek asked Elizabeth Warren, how could the American people want someone who lies to them? He said it's hilarious. Videos like that show how Elizabeth Warren and every establishment dim will lose.
Oh man, yeah, that's an awesome video. I have that clip. He asks her, she says like without any level of like self-awareness, no, candidates shouldn't want anybody who lies. Now, she may think they're talking about Trump. The problem here is that, she has a history of saying things that are not true. That's the problem.
All right, so really quickly before we go to the next one, Michael Easterwood. Thank you for the super chat, Michael Easterwood. He has a topic.
What's the topic?
So you want to go ahead to this one before you go to the next one?
Let's stop it.
He says, number one, being an anti-war voice, are you worried about a YouTube purge? And are you on any other platforms? Number two, latest debate has me wondering if CNN is colluding with Warren. Any plan if Byrne gets cheated again?
So yes, I am worried about the purge from the standpoint of YouTube. They're already doing that. They've already put into the contract that they, for the most part, can get rid of anybody for any particular reason. I don't know why you had to put that into the contract. They could have done that anyway. Is there a platform? Fairness doesn't necessarily apply in corporate structures. It's a totalitarian system. I kept pushing for a union. I thought that the YouTubers themselves need to kind of cobble together, since all of them are somewhat independent contractors. Well, we could be independent contractors with a united voice on that front.
Right.
However, you require bigger channels for that, because ultimately YouTube doesn't want you anyway. It's kind of like the joke where if a black person got held as a hostage and they said, we want $1 billion, click. It's like, you can keep him. It's that type of thought. It's like, we're glad that you guys have come together and sent this letter, but if you feel like you need to leave, you can leave. It will take bigger channels, and the bigger channels, for the most part, don't have that issue. So the bigger channels say, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Deal with it. So it does concern me. There is no other platform that allows you to do what you do and still get revenue for it. The channel I'm going to be working on, I'm going to have my thing on Sputnik, so that radio show is going to be on during the course of the day. I have all of my content saved. Worst come to worst, I can always back up my channel if I need to back it up. I don't necessarily trust YouTube to do that, which is why I always save my content locally. But yeah, it is a concern, and it is something that I am concerned about, especially with the demonetization and whatnot. If anything, what they would do is they would just demonetize your channel, not necessarily take your channel.
Because you have shows that get demonetized every day that you lose revenue for, and sometimes they do reinstate them, but a lot of times they don't.
They don't, yeah.
Which is why another reason why Patreon is such a nice thing to have on the background, because
you can't trust them.
If YouTube decides, like they did last year or the year before, to shut it all down,
then
at least,
So yeah, Patreon is awesome.
Okay, so the second question was
Patreon or PayPal. Both of those things help because people donate.
Right, and the super chats like these.
And the super chats, but yeah, it is a worry. Oh, and the other thing, what was the second one? There was two parts.
I was trying to read it and you interrupted me from reading it to ask me what it was. Cheese and rice. Latest debate has me wondering if CNN is colluding with Warren. Do you have a plan if Bernie gets cheated again?
So I don't think they're colluding. So media is always. Where's my ink pen?
That's your ink pen.
Oh, why'd you take it?
Because I was writing. I'm making notes.
Oh, why are you making up here?
I need an ink pen, though. I don't want the baby book. I wrote all of that.
Look, media is not an independent arbiter. Never has been. Media has a perspective. The notion that they are, objective and all this other stuff, that's framing. And that's framing that's dishonest on its face. The people who run media are human beings. And those human beings, I guarantee you, have an ideology, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And that ideology comes to work with them every day as if, I can rip myself apart and do the job. Nonsense. Everything has a context in the way that you look at the world. Everything has to be put together in some particular way, some particular fashion, some particular narrative. Those things are editorial opinions. Media has a perspective. Now, the reason I say that is because people like CNN and whatnot, they have certain biases, especially in the sense of maximizing their profit. Meaning, Donald Trump working with the Russians is a great story and is profitable for those networks. Same thing with the media when they can write these incessant stories about Donald Trump having getting peed on by a hooker and in Russia and whatnot. But the same thing is true in the political space. Meaning, political campaigns have their sources who they interact with. Hillary Clinton had plenty of sources in the media, same thing in the Washington Post, all that stuff. Warren, whether or not she's working directly with CNN is secondary. She doesn't have to. You don't need a model that models that. The only thing you need is, I'm leaking the story to CNN. That's all you need. CNN runs with it from there. Why? Because it is in CNN's interest to say, there's a conflict between Sanders and Warren. Oh, that truce is over. That truce is over. Or to say, Sanders is sexist, which is they want to say anyway, because they wanted to say it in 2016. It's like the Bernie bro thing in and of itself is Sanders is sexist, missing the point that Sanders has more women than men supporting him. Think about that shit. My point is, you don't need a model for CNN to be colluding directly with Warren. The only thing you need is a campaign to leak something to CNN for CNN to just run with it. They would say, our sources say X.
So you don't believe that they are directly
they don't need to.
colluding with
No.
Okay.
The only thing they need is for a
campaign. That they think Biden was probably in on it too.
I mean, look, if there is it possible? Of course. I mean, people talk behind the scenes any particular time. Maybe some lower level person talking to somebody in the media from it. It's possible, especially if you're talking about like a Biden or Hillary Clinton or something to that effect. But what?
I'm listening to you.
Especially like a Biden or a Clinton or something to that effect. But you don't need it for this. I mean, ultimately, you had a story that CNN would consider a bombshell, and you had the secondary effect of, the truce between Sanders and Warren are over. Both of those things are just train wrecks. And it allows CNN to run with it as if it's, we have this new bombshell thing that Sanders is a sexist. We knew all along.
Yeah.
And now Warren is backing us up on the story. It's that. But you don't need direct collusion for that. That's just a model incentive.
All right, I have another super chat. You have your tag on your shirt still.
Do I? Oh.
Sorry, that was a Christmas gift.
It was a Christmas gift.
And
I didn't
left
see the
tag
tag.
on,
Yeah.
so. Our bad. Thank you for pointing that out. He actually used a super chat to point that out, so
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
And no, we're not returning it.
Somebody could have been like, I'm not going to write a super chat for this, but dude, you got to take.
Well, somebody else did say it, but
no,
he
I appreciate the guy who did the super chat.
Yeah.
It's like, look, dude, tag.
Get the tag. All right.
I don't want to say this aloud, but super chat, get the tag.
Thank you, AR says it's a very nice shirt. All right, so
I think so too.
Which
is why I'm rocking it.
Well, I think so too, which is why I bought it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's the one that your mom got. I got the
Is
yellow
it?
one. All right, anyways, so we have quite a few super
Dean
chats that
Winchester
just came
shirts.
through. And since this is contributor appreciation, I recommend that we go through these before we go on to the next topic.
Well, let me do the next topic real quick because it'll be like 5 minutes. Let's be quick. I promise you, it'll be quick. Fastest topic ever.
5 minutes is not fast, but go ahead.
Okay, well, 4 minutes.
Go.
It'll be quick. Do you guys remember this? I know you remember this. Essentially, Warren confronts Sanders. Warren says Sanders said that a woman couldn't win. Sanders said, I never said that. He said, clearly, I never said that. Clearly, I believe a woman could win. What I told you was that Trump is a racist, misogynist, bigot, and that he would use everything in order to attack the woman candidate. That's what I told you. Now, if you interpreted that, fair enough, but you need to say that you interpreted that, not that I said that. I never said that. Now, Warren seems to be living within the interpretation, and is saying that you said...
living within something.
Right. And so she says, well, Sanders said it. I disagreed. I don't want to talk about it further. That's all I want to say. Bob told me that a black person could never get a radio job, but I don't want to say it. I don't want to talk about it further. I don't want to say anything else. I just disagree. Like, it's this nonsense stuff. So,
Play the clip.
So, but what I want to show here is Tom Steyer, billionaire Tom Steyer. Look at Tom Steyer in this. Tom Steyer is the awkwardest man in the world in this moment.
I think you called me a liar on national TV. I think you called me a liar on...
God damn it, Twitter.
Girl, shut your mouth.
I hate it when it does this. But it's... You can cut it out. Look
national
at Steyer.
TV.
Let's not do it right now. You want to have that discussion, we'll have that discussion. You called me, you told me. All right, let's not do it now.
I don't want to get in the middle. I just want to say hi.
I don't know why that's so funny to me.
This dude is like an Uber fan. He's like, I'm sorry. I just want to say hi.
I just want to say hi, Bernie. That's where I am, man. Honestly, Tom, I get it, dog. I'm like that too. When I'm at a rally, I'm like, I just want to say hi, Bernie.
He's not at a fucking rally though. He's kind of a candidate.
This is a billionaire. Loving a socialist. He's thirsty.
I just want to say. I'm sorry. I know
And by
that was
the
a
way,
fucking awkward moment.
He waited in this awkward, tense moment. Look at his face. Look at his face. He's like,
He's watching like, oh god.
He's like, oh god.
Oh, this is rough.
Discussion, we'll have that
Oh, they
discussion.
going
You
at
told
it.
me,
Okay.
you
Oh,
told me.
hi.
I know this is bad time, Bernie. I just want to say hi. I love
Bernie's
that.
like, yeah, good. Okay, bro.
I love it. I love that clip. That is so awkward. That's super awkward. Now, so let's keep going. So, Steyer, who's thirsty at this point.
Lord, he is trying to get a piece of Bernie.
Now, they're at the MLK event. They're about to announce Sanders. And let me see if I have the whole clip. Because the whole clip is that much funnier. Yeah, right. All right. They're about to announce
We can't
Sanders.
see it. You gotta put it on.
But no, I know. They're about to announce Sanders to go on stage. Now, Steyer, standing beside him, Sanders is in the oven mitts. What?
They are not oven mitts.
He's in his oven mitts. Now, watch what happens. This is awesome.
This is so awkward.
We get to watch on TV, but we begin now with the introduction of the folk that many of you have come to.
Let's show it again. Steyer is thirsty, man. He's thirsty.
We get to watch on TV, but we begin now with the introduction of the folk that many of you have come to see.
I'm trying to get my head right. Get my head right. What is up with Steyer? Like, what is he doing?
Those hearings we get to watch on TV, but we begin now with the introduction of the folk that many
Now,
of you
Bernie
have
Sanders
come
told, I think it
to.
was the New York Times, I don't tolerate bullshit well. Well, there we are. For the first time,
I wonder what he's saying.
For the first time, we have a billionaire that is thirsty.
If you could whisper into Bernie's ear,
What would I say? Give him hell, Bernie.
maybe that's what he said.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. He just wanted to be standing side by side with Sanders. I don't know what this is about. This is the weirdest thing in the world. This billionaire is trying to get in good with the socialists. What the hell? And gets dismissed.
Yeah, somebody said a photo op. This is not the photo opportunity that he wanted. I am
Like-
sure.
Just knocking him out.
He's like, yeah, no, get the fuck.
Get away. Get away.
I got shit to do.
Get away. I don't think you should exist, Tom. Now, this is the
That's
catch.
bad.
This is the catch. I wouldn't give Tom the time of day either after this. Look at this. This is the amount of money that they've spent. This is the ad spending. $235 million for Bloomberg. Steyer, $149 million. You know who the next closest person is? Trump, $41 million. The next, Buttigieg, $26 million. Sanders, 24. Sanders has raised more money than everybody else here.
From my little tiny donations.
From his donations, $24 million. But look at Bloomberg and Steyer. Look at this shit. And Steyer dropped this money in Nevada and South Carolina in order to get on the ballot. Meaning Tom Steyer, in that last poll, I think it was like 15% in South Carolina. He jumped up to like number 2 or 3 spot. It was astonishing. And so, but that was based on the money, this money that he's been dumping into the race. There is nobody clamoring for Tom Steyer.
Maybe that's what he was saying to Bernie. He was like, Did you see how much money I put down, Bernie? And Bernie was like, get the fuck out of here.
That's not the person to have that conversation with.
Like, get out of here, man.
And honestly, Steyer didn't look like he was saying something. He looked like he was just trying to ingratiate himself like, I'm a big fan, Sanders. I'm a big fan of yours. But this is ungodly. This is fucking obscene.
$149
million.
Closer to 150.
In a primary. They're not even the main election. And the only reason they can do this is because they're billionaires. That's all. This is them buying the election. Now, I am shuffling from pillar to post, getting my $17 a pop or $18 a pop. And you are a billionaire and you're dropping that much money in the race. And you're going to come at me like this?
I like the title on this one.
Don't
Scroll
come at
back
me, bro.
up where it says, I don't think they're going to be friends
No, I don't think they're going to be friends at all, Beth. Yeah, Beth Lynch is fucking hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I don't want you talking to me, if I'm being honest with you. No, I'm not going to say anything mean or out the way to you. But fact is, I think you are buying this election. You are the problem.
No, but I'm really a nice guy, so let's just
I don't give a
Bernie.
shit why you're a nice guy. This is the problem with this country. That's Bernie Sanders' point. This is the problem. Who are these? You have a billionaire supposedly in the White House. You have another billionaire that jumped into the race that made all of this money on fucking up the environment. Now he's want to be the environmental guy. You have Bloomberg, who doesn't even get into the debates. He's just dropping $200 billion. So instead of him actually doing campaigning, he just says, look, I'm just going to drop money. $230 million. He can spend $1 billion in this primary.
Yeah, and he'd be okay.
Yeah, so when the guy who's trying to buy the election brushes up against the socialists, that's called a cold shoulder with other mitts.
I'm going to go back to the previous super chats, but this one is right in line with what we're talking about. Dilly, y'all. Thank you for the super chat. It says, I respect Steyer for his answer when asked about the confrontation. What did he say?
He said something like, what did he say? He didn't answer. Like he didn't give an answer. He gave a non-answer, if that makes sense. When they asked him what were they saying, Steyer said something like, Steyer wouldn't say what the conversation was about. He just dodged it. Mm. Yeah, but he lied. He said something like they were just arguing about something. I forget what he said, but he didn't answer. He shot off the Steyer for that, though. He didn't reveal it. No, it was the Warren campaign that asked CNN if CNN had the tape. Understand what that means. Warren asked for this to come out, meaning I was most likely right that this was staged for that very specific reason of getting that out. That's what I mean. You don't have to. CNN is infinitely predictable in this situation. If you are CNN and one candidate who just said that the other candidate said that they said something, well, what is CNN going to do? Is CNN going to zero in on the fact that these two candidates are now talking to one another? Is CNN not going to take that footage? Like,
it doesn't have
Elizabeth
to be
Warren,
overt collusion. It's just them
correct.
kind of utilizing.
Yes, they're just using CNN
ends.
for their own ends. They're using them as a prop. Does Elizabeth Warren know that she has her mic on? Does she know that the camera is watching? Like, I guess I'm making the point that she went to have this conversation open and in the public to try to bolster her credibility and get Sanders in this kind of awkward moment. Sanders was like, you call me a liar. What are you talking about?
Look, we're not going to do this here.
I'm not going to do this here.
All right, we got to go on because there are quite a few super chats that we need to get to.
Go through super
All right, so before we go to super chats, because we did have a couple of patron topics for today. So let me go through those. And again, welcome to Contributor Appreciation. We've got about 400 people here. If you are enjoying the content, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. This is the information that we pulled from the Patreon platform. So if you are a patron, make sure that you log in weekly to give topic suggestions, because that is the content that we use primarily to fuel today's show. So thank you for the submissions that we got. The first one is going to come from Michael Williams. Michael Williams says, there's a lot of S's. Michael Williams says, Bernie is against Trump's NAFTA.
Yes.
People applaud him for it, but if it is better than the Clinton NAFTA deal, we have in place now, even if it is slim pickings, shouldn't he be in favor but still push his agenda?
No.
What are the differences between NAFTA and Trump's NAFTA that makes Bernie so against it?
I mean, it's an entire trade agreement, so it's hard to, go through the details. But the idea of it is somewhat basic. The reason he's against it. If you do a trade agreement, let's even grant that it's incrementally better. I mean, even Sanders says it's moderately better. There are some benefits and there are some defects, but climate change is not mentioned in the bill. That was one of his big takeaways. Also, because Trump is not going to be for it. Also, do you really trust the trade agreement for the most part that's put together by Donald Trump? who is the interest of Donald Trump and who interest will be served in that particular trade deal. Also, if your name is Bernie Sanders, who would you rather write a trade deal? Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump? And considering you may get the opportunity to try to write that trade deal, why do you want to sign on to this one? Now, understand what that means. You're not, year after year after year, going to be able to open a trade agreement. Meaning, you're not going to say, all right, Trump did his 2 years ago, now I'm going to put mine in, I'm Bernie Sanders, and I'm going to reopen this trade deal with Mexico and Canada. That is not going to happen. You're not going to get the bite at the apple over and over and over and over again. The reason why Elizabeth Warren's answer in that debate didn't really make sense when they asked her whether she was for the trade deal, and she was like, well, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit better, so I'll go with it, is because you are not going to be able to open that agreement over and over and over. The fact that NAFTA got open in and of itself is somewhat of an amazing thing that Trump was able to even open it. That was part of his campaign thing. But do you honestly believe that if they sign this now, that in 2 or 3 years they're going to be able to open the trade deal again with another president? How often do you think they can open these? This is kind of my point. If your name is Sanders and your goal is I'm going to win this election, then why the hell would you sign on to a trade deal that ties your hands in regards to policy that you may want to make between these countries? I just don't see why anybody would do it. Not to mention, why would you give Trump a win? Even that basic. Every Democrat should have been out here downing this bill. But they're not. But Warren, at the very least, should have been like, no, as president, I want to be able to write my own trade deal that supports and backs up workers and engages climate change. That's what she should have said, just like Sanders, for the most part, made that argument. That's the issue, Mike. I mean, it's not so much that there are dramatic differences between the Trump thing. It's more so if you are the president of the United States, meaning you believe you can be president of the United States, and you want to put a policy for workers. You are against NAFTA, you're against the TPP, you're against many of these deals that for the most part that you consider to be written by corporations and written in corporate interests. Well, you want to get the opportunity to do that. It's already open. And so if it's already open when you get in office, well, you would have some agency in regards to making that deal in the best interest of your own mindset, not necessarily in Trump's.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would support a trade deal that Trump is putting together, personally.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, we're going to go to the next one. From
And that was succinct. That was succinct. On the fly. It's succinct.
We're going to go to the next one from Patreon. And again, I am going to go back to the super chats. I just want to get through these that were written down ahead of time. So Leo, thank you for your topic suggestion on Patreon. Leo says, do you think the impeachment trials will hurt Bernie? The Warren attack happening around the same time as when the impeachment process will start up are not isolated attacks, in my opinion.
They're not.
I think impeachment was pushed to the Senate because this will kneecap Sanders more than anything while freeing up Biden to not fuck up till elections start in early states. Sanders' strategy involves continuous rallies and messaging, not to reach those already on board necessarily, but to expand the electorate, and that may get hampered if he needs to attend the hearings and talk impeachments instead of staying on message as he has throughout his campaign. The damage might be minimal, but these elections are won in the margins, and any edge can make or break a run at the presidency for Sanders, in my opinion. Thanks for all the awesome content. Y'all have a great weekend. That was from Leo. So what do you think about, is impeachment hurting Sanders?
So
I think the
you're
answer
not
is
alone in that.
yes.
Trump accuses Democrats of shutting Sanders' campaign out through this hoax impeachment trial. Now, usually, in my head, most things are opportunistic. They're not necessarily entirely planned. I don't think these guys are four-dimensional chess players in a good sense. But there are some plans that come to fruition that people put forward, but there are other things that are just opportunistically used. Nancy Pelosi made it very clear, Chuck Schumer made it very clear, they don't want Sanders. They were at these anti-Sanders rallies or meetings along with Buttigieg. And these guys were part of the coalition of trying to figure out a way to stop Sanders and to do it in a way that doesn't necessarily expose them stopping Sanders. The Obama world working in the back end in order to try to stop Sanders. Obama coming out saying if he's running away with it, then I'll get engaged. I'll get involved. Well, clearly they are going to be getting involved. I don't put it past them. It's not like I needed to hear Obama say that to not believe that Obama was going to already do that. It was very clear. 95% of the income gains going to the top 1%. I don't give a shit if he's black. A black person just so happened to give 95% of the income gains to the top 1%. I have no idea why people are still using identity as a thing unto itself, as if it's not an issue of policy. Him being black didn't stop that black president from giving 95% of income to the top 1%. I hope you get my point. In the sense of this coalition, these third-way Democrats, yes, they're going to do anything in their powers to stop Sanders. The impeachment hearing forces the senators, Elizabeth Warren, Sanders, the two senators that Nancy Pelosi definitely does not want to be president, takes them off the campaign trail 3 weeks before Iowa. And Nancy Pelosi sat on those impeachment articles in order to do that. Understand what I mean? Unprecedented. She sat on the impeachment articles saying, oh, she's not going to get a fair trial. Oh, we're not going to get a fair trial. Knowing that when she finally put those through, it was going to drag all of the senators off the campaign trail, meaning Warren and Sanders.
Very good timing.
Very good timing. Here's the catch. Impeachment wasn't planned to do this, though. I hope you understand what I mean. Nancy Pelosi was not for impeachment. So it wasn't like Nancy Pelosi was like, all right, let's impeach this mofo and get sent. No. If anything, it's opportunistic. I hope you understand what I mean. It's a difference. AOC, Sanders' surrogate, was pushing for impeachment. Elizabeth Warren was pushing for impeachment. I don't know whether or not Elizabeth Warren understood that it was going to take her off the campaign trail. She probably was just looking at it for politics. But again, she has bad political instincts, and she's taking a particular policy that now takes them off the campaign trail. That's assuming Elizabeth Warren is in it to win it. I'm not entirely of that belief. Part of me believes that she's in this just to ding Sanders.
Sanders votes, yeah.
Honestly, I could show you the polling. If she was not in this race, he'd been winning this race in spades. Because the overwhelming majority of the people who support her would back Sanders. They believe that she's Sanders with a vagina. They still believe it for whatever reason. Many people just want a woman to be president. I gotta be honest, I don't care whether it's a woman. I don't care if it's black, white, gay, straight, trans. I don't care. I care about the policies. What are you going to do to materially benefit the population itself? And if that is, if you're not going to do something that I think is admirable, you're not going to give my vote. Here's the catch.
Right.
Whether Pelosi is doing this or not for impeachment, I don't know. I do know she held those articles. And it is pretty damn coincidental that she put these articles out
now.
3 weeks or 2 weeks before Iowa. So if you're asking me, I would say to some degree, yes, in an opportunistic way, Nancy Pelosi is using impeachment to hit Sanders and held those. Because look, if you push through impeachment and you didn't want to do it, fair enough. You send it to the Senate. The Senate does what it does. But you didn't do that. You held those articles. I don't give a shit your reasoning. Oh, I'm not going to get a fair trial in the Senate. Nonsense. You have no control over that. This is entirely a property of the Senate, just like this was entirely a property of the House when you put these things through. The Senate is controlled by the Republicans. Is what it is. You decided to go through with impeachment. Fair enough. You knew the Senate was controlled by the Republicans when you went through with the impeachment in the first place. Holding the articles, knowing full well that it is going to injure many of the people on the campaign trail, especially the two people who you just so much hate. I'm just saying, that's a little, that raises an eyebrow, to say the least.
All right, so I think we...
Oh, by the way, Nancy Pelosi said that's not true.
Okay.
Because we totally thought she was going to admit to that.
I believe everything Nancy Pelosi says.
Everything.
All right, so...
She's a woman. You're supposed to always believe powerful women. You didn't know
We
that?
have quite a few super chats, so let's go through these.
Go for it.
Black FA 508, thank you for the super chat. He says, what are your thoughts on Tulsi supporters going down with the ship?
That's funny to me, and I'm not quite sure why that's so funny to me.
I don't know why.
Oh, that reminds me.
No, answer this question.
What do I think them going down with the ship? Personally, look, I was Bernie or bust.
Was?
Still am.
Okay.
Until in 2016.
Okay.
Can I begrudge somebody for lumping on
Being
to a
Tulsi
candidate
or
with 2%? Yeah. I can't begrudge him. No. Do I think they would be better served with Sanders? Yes. And I think they would be better served with Sanders only because many of the priorities that Tulsi is pushing for, he's pushing for also. He may say it differently, and Tulsi gives him more space to make those arguments. That's fair. And there are different candidates. Don't misunderstand me. Tulsi's main perspective is foreign policy. But I got to be honest. Bernie Sanders is being dragged into this foreign policy discussion in a far more substantive way than he was when he first entered this campaign, especially from the standpoint of opposing Trump. This is a powerful thing. FDR didn't get into office as as what we consider to be FDR. FDR was a plutocrat. They call him a traitor to his class when he put through those policies. But he put through those policies because he realized there was an environmental need for those policies. I'm making a point that Trump running with this notion that he's a quote-unquote anti-war candidate, and Sanders coming in and saying, no, you're not. And he takes policy prescriptions, especially from the standpoint of the Middle East, of I'm pulling our troops out, we're not going to be in those countries, etc., etc. If you're looking for somebody to embody those positions, I would argue that Sanders is your person. By the same token, I can't begrudge you for voting for the person that you want. I mean, ultimately, this is an election. People get to choose their perspective and their ideology. And if their ideology is not found in other candidates, then yeah, they may go down with the ship. I disagree with them, however, that their policy has not been espoused in other candidates. And I suggest to you that Tulsi, I would love for him to put her in his administration.
Wait. In line with that, because there is a super chat. I'm going through the super chats to try to read the ones that are on the same theme because we've got so many. But Vondo, the journalist, in line with what we're talking about, says, why are Bernie supporters, at least from what I've seen so far, so against a Bernie Tulsi ticket, as if any other can win? They only just now realized Warren was compromised.
Excuse me. I didn't just now realize that. I have months of videos pushing that.
Okay. So why do you think that Bernie supporters are against a Bernie Tulsi ticket?
Because Tulsi, I am not. No, maybe I am against it. I would love for Tulsi to be Secretary of State if I had to.
But maybe not VP.
But not VP, no. Now, the reason I would prefer her not to be VP is because Tulsi has a lot of baggage and she is a lightning rod for criticism. Now, I'm just being honest.
Okay.
It's not that she's wrong. Don't misunderstand me. When she's saying Hillary Clinton is this and that, she speaks her piece like nobody's business. And I love her for that. But the only reason she can speak her piece like that is because she has no chance to win. When Sanders thought he had no chance of winning in 2016, he could be a ball of fire. When it became, hey, I need to win, it's like, yeah, we need to keep Russia from other elections.
I'm not saying anything.
Right. It's like he told the line.
From me.
Yeah, right. So, I guess my point is, it's not that I guess I'm not entirely against it. I mean, but Tulsi is saying she's going all the way to the convention, so this notion of her even getting out the race doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But I think she's a lightning rod. I don't know. For what he's trying to accomplish, I think she makes it more difficult. That's all. He's already calling himself a socialist. That socialist already has problems with the American electorate and the way they perceive socialists. That is a headwind. The fact that he's 80 years old, that is a headwind. He's going to have to find somebody who's younger, but somebody who can credibly carry out his agenda. And I don't believe Tulsi would.
Right, and then plus people are saying she's not for Medicare for all.
No, she's not.
Rob R. also mentions Tulsi voted for Trump's NAFTA. She's a neoliberal. I'm done.
I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't know what Tulsi is, if I'm being fair.
Okay.
There are policy positions that she takes that are like, for instance, the single payer plus. It's not horrid. It's not Medicare for all, but it's not horrid. The issue here is I have to credibly believe that the person is going to implement that stuff. I don't with her. That's all. It's not her focus. So don't misunderstand me. Sanders is making a part of his focus in the campaign domestic and foreign policy. The foreign policy part he was pulled into. The domestic part, he's been there for 40, 50 years. Even, honestly, the foreign policy stuff, especially when he was talking about those foreign wars in South America that we were going through with death squads and whatnot. You should hear him talk about this stuff in the New York Times. And even as mayor of Burlington, he opened up some kind of connection thing with South America during these trade wars. Like, yeah, as a mayor. I guess my point is, look, I know Tulsi is a new flavor, and she's being very strident about the foreign policy stuff, and I agree with her on it. I always say she's my sword on those issues. But I have to credibly believe that the person who Sanders puts as his VP will implement and push through the policy prescription that he is talking about. And I don't entirely believe it with her. Foreign policy seemed to be her focus. Right. So, fair enough, I love her, Secretary of State, VP, no, at least not for me. And okay, look, I'm someone who backed Tulsi. I mean, so I haven't dinged her on this in this front.
Okay, there we go. All right, one more before we get off the Tulsi camp.
Go for it.
James777, thank you for the super chat. James says, Tulsi quickly defended Bernie.
Yes, he did.
She would have tore Snake Warrens in this issue if she was on that stage like she did on phony Kamala Harris by bringing up all Warren's lies.
Yes, she would have. Yes, she would have. I think I said as much. It was like, God, I wish she was on that debate stage.
Yeah.
But this is what I mean. She's my sword on this stuff. That's why I say I don't. Look, I I don't agree with Sanders supporters that go after Tulsi. I just don't. I think, the fact that she came out for your guy back in 2016 when nobody else would is a big fucking deal. And the fact that even now when Warren came out with that thing, Tulsi Gabbard immediately put out, hey, she was, I had a conversation with Sanders. He was always pleasant to me. And, I never had that thing, essentially saying, I don't buy that.
Yeah.
I don't buy it. So she's always backed him, even now.
Yeah.
It concerns me that she's talking about she's going to the convention. That part I don't agree with. Get out and support your guy. But look, I want her to have a role in administration, but not VP.
All right, let's play this clip real quick, and we'll finish up with the Tulsi
One of Tulsi's
content.
supporters challenged her to push-up contest. I have to be honest. This is one of the best clips that I've seen of Tulsi Gabbard. She's not monotone. She's open and engaging. A sense of humor is being displayed. Oftentimes in her speeches, she comes across as, just, I don't know, it's non-effusive or emotive or something.
Yeah, she's
it's
very
just,
monotone.
It's kind of awkward.
She has that calming, relaxing voice.
That's
and
what
I'm
it
just
is.
going to stay here and try to diffuse the situation.
Not gonna push-up contest. I love that. Even at the end where she's like 1, 2, 3.
Get down.
She's fit. Like she makes me feel bad about
I've
myself.
seen videos where she's like working out and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they try to make jokes talking about the reason that people support her is because she's she's an attractive, fit female, and it's like, no, dog.
All right, so real quick, Jay Wood wants to clarify when you say that Tulsi's not Medicare for all.
She's single payer plus.
He says when you say she's not M for A, are you saying she would be against it in a Sanders presidency?
No.
Because she put
No, I don't think that.
another own plan does mean that,
No, I don't
and
think
there's
that.
no evidence to support.
Well, I don't think she's. I never said that. I didn't say that.
Okay,
What I said
that's-
was she's
that's just trying
for
to clarify.
single payer plus. That's her plan. Now, if she was out of the race, do I think that she would be like, oh, God, I'm going to be against Medicare for all and I'm going to start talking about choice? I'm going to start. I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, as a candidate, as an individual candidate, she has her own plan. If she was melded into somebody's campaign, I would imagine she would back the person's plan, especially if it's a situation where she's backing the person. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so much that you back everything. She just has her own idea of this is where I want to go with this
Right.
if I'm doing it myself.
And to be fair, I was reading a comment from someone that says she's not even for Medicare for all.
She's for single payer plus.
Edward
But it's
Clark-
not for Medicare for all. But again, it's a secondary question of whether just because she has her own plan now, wouldn't she? I hope you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
as a candidate, of course, she's going to have her own thing. I mean, she could have just signed on in Medicare. She had her own thing.
Right.
But if she was backing Sanders, I would be shocked if she came out against Medicare for all in that point.
Right.
It would be bizarre to me.
Edward Klein says she's not even doing girl push-ups. Not bad. Yeah, that's right. Like I would be like
Right.
on my knees, like
her
doing-
knees aren't even up.
Yeah.
She's fit. She's fit. I've seen her like working out. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, MMA. That's cool, Adam Bell. So I think Garden Gnome. Dang, I lost it. Garden Gnome says that if you watch Tulsi's live streams, she does relax a bit.
Oh,
and
does
lose
she?
The formalities. We don't do that. Watch her live streams, but maybe that would be.
That would make more sense then. Because when she's giving the speeches,
She just has that same kind of.
It's a calm, right.
collected, that kind of thing. All right, so we got a couple more super chats.
Oh,
Let me
wait,
go
real
back
quick.
up.
Speaking about Tulsi would have told Warren a new one
Okay.
if she did that. If you want to know what a repudiation is, real-time repudiation, not like people were against it. The media was like, people were against it. Well, that's just them writing it down. We don't know if that's true or not. But real-world repudiation is this. After CNN did that smear job of a debate where they essentially asked them, hey, the Ayatollah wants people out of the Middle East. What's the difference between you and the Ayatollah? They were asking him stuff like this.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you going to not bankrupt the country with your ideas? This was the shit they were asking him. And this was all night. And then they asked Warren, hey, or they asked Sanders, so you say that didn't happen. Yes. So when it happened, Warren, what did you think? Like, it was like extraordinary what they were doing. It was so bad that many other media outlets was reporting on how bad they were.
Yeah.
CNN was horrendous on this. After that smear job, this. In the last 2 days, Bernie Sanders has received more than 200,000 contributions, totaling nearly $4 million. That includes more than 25,000 new contributors. If that's not momentum, I don't know what momentum is.
It's 2 days.
We can't hear you, Sanders. Why can't we hear you, Sanders?
You gotta hit the play button.
No. There we go.
Days
Let's
alone.
try this again. Has ways about it.
Last 2 days, including the period following the recent debate last night, we have received more than 200,000 contributions, totaling nearly $4 million. Now, I say that not to boast about money. Money is money. But to just indicate the kind of support that we are receiving. 200,000 contributions in the last 2 days alone. And that, interestingly, includes more than 25,000 people who have never contributed to our campaign before. New people coming on board. And if that's not momentum, then I don't know what momentum is.
It's a few things, right? Yes, it's momentum, but it's also people being pissed off. People being pissed off. I think I've said this before. There was a political idea that if you bomb civilian populations, that civilian populations would eventually get angry at their government and topple the government. And so this was some of the ideas that were backing this notion of Germany, or Britain bombing civilians, those type of things, where it's like eventually, if we can do bad enough, the country will come together. But that's not what happens. What happens is the country rallies around the government. What happened? When you kill Soleimani, 6 million people came out. Now, not all of those people were coming out in support of the government. Many of those people were. A lot of those people were coming out because they were angry and they were pissed off and they had a certain degree of solidarity associated with it. I mean, the bombings in London, those bombings in London did not fracture the population. If anything, it made them that much more committed to the war effort. When you have this unfairness, there's a reason why the Nazis would act as if, we're being attacked and we're being assailed. Look at all these people attacking us. It's like, she keeps hitting me. Why? Because the public would be like, we're angry. How dare they treat us so unfairly? People who identify with a particular group feel some kind of way when that group is being maligned. He has millions of fucking people out there. So when people watch, like I did, and I'm looking at CNN like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? And I said, I'm sending you a check for $20 right now, buddy. And at that moment, I sent Bernie's check for $20. I was pissed off. I had no other recourse. I saw people on Twitter, a guy says, my wife and I sent Sanders $100 each. Fuck CNN. It was that type of stuff. People were also pissed off at Warren, and they said, this shit is untenable. Here's $10. Like, they were sending him cash over this because they were so angry at what they thought was being just unfair treatment. That's where that's from. Yes, he has momentum. Yes, he was going to get a certain degree, but not that much. $4 million in 2 days. That's an astonishing sum of money. And you're talking about a repudiation. How much did Warren get? I would be curious to know. She hasn't been out there posting. And if she hasn't been out there posting, that should tell you something. Let's do super chat.
Speaking of speaking of Tulsi, Lady Marmalade says, I want to love Tulsi, but her stance against BDS makes no sense. It's a non-violent movement.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. I agree. Look, Tulsi, she's not perfect. She has her issues. But my issue for Tulsi, look, I could support Tulsi. I could be pretty grandiose and magnanimous because I don't think she can win.
Yeah.
I'd be honest. I mean, if it was one of those things where she was challenging my candidate, I may be a bit less in this, thing, especially since I don't think that she has the same domestic priorities that Sanders does.
Yeah.
So, fair enough.
All right, moving on to the next super chat. Dun, 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 dun. All the way back up here. Elephants on Coke.
I love that name.
Elephants on Coke says, Progressive Voice gave you an F on his left-wing tier list. Guess it's time for you to pack it in, Jamal. The lefty TMZ says you are no good. That means it's
Do
done.
I honestly give a shit about her? I kept to be honest, I never got his show. I remember, look, it's a child following whatever the Young Turks does. And honestly, I don't know why you would just watch The Echo or just watch Young Turks if that's what you're going to do. I mean, it's the same fucking show. He's angling for a job on TYT. He looks like Cenk Uyghur's son, for God's sake. He does. They look related. I thought he was Cenk Uyghur's son for a while. I just did.
Okay.
Look, you can evaluate both shows. You can evaluate the content that I do. You can evaluate the content that he does. You can evaluate the intellectual level that I add to it versus the intellectual level that he adds to it, or they're not at all. Again, watch TYT, watch his show. They're effectively the same.
We're not gonna put too much time in that because
I'm not. But let me go just one point. The reason why the Progressive Voice doesn't like me, I think I've said this before.
We've
PV begged to get on the show. I can release the emails. I ignored this because I never liked him. Now, I never liked him because I realized that he was just a follower. When Justice Democrats came out, and I think it was, what's her name? Oh, Same Progressive. Same Progressive came out with a video essentially saying this is horrible, this is horrendous. And Cal comes out with a video fucking unhinged, essentially saying get the fuck out the way. Progressive Voice immediately after comes out with a video, essentially almost crying on the video saying, leave us alone or something like that. At that point, I was like, all right, this is a child doing the job of a man, and he's not good at it. And my thought was, if he's a follower like this, I don't want to have anything to do with him. I thought it was disgusting. And so my thought was, yeah, I don't want anything to do with you. He comes on my channel, and he puts a thing saying, hey, does anybody here care about Progressive Voice? And I joked him. Hard in that video.
Let's
and we
move on.
laughed at him.
Okay,
we laughed at him because he was a child trying to do a man's job. Now, I felt bad about that.
Clearly.
I felt bad about that because my thought was, oh, dude, you're punching a child. Now, Gardner made the point, if he puts on his gloves, he can get hit in the face. That's the way I look at it. Okay. I don't give any time to this because I don't value the opinion. So,
Right.
If it was put it this way, whatever you want to think of H.A. Goodman, and I know you're not a big fan of H.A. Whatever you want to think of H.A. H.A. would debate anybody about anything. And he will call you on his show, he will go on your show, and he is willing to have the conversation. I can respect that, even if I disagree with that. I don't respect the opposite of that. Meaning, if you have a disagreement and you can't have a conversation because you realize that you were going to get eaten alive, I have no respect for that position, which is why I don't value anything that comes out of PV. That's all.
Okay, we're going to move on from that. Darren Alevi says, do you think Warren will stay in until the convention to screw progressives over?
It depends. If Warren is in this race in order to eat away at Sanders, then yes. Then yes. I mean, I don't know her model. Like, I have a hard time modeling Warren. Part of me thinks that she's in this race, pushed in this race, or at the very least requested to be in this race, working with Hillary Clinton behind the scenes, somebody who vehemently hates Sanders, with Bill Clinton, who vehemently hates Sanders, and with this kind of Obama wing of the party in the background in secret that she's not necessarily, she's working with these people. And if she's working with people who hate Sanders, I have to question her motives for working with these people who hate Sanders. Clearly, they do. Bill Clinton leans over to Tom Perez, don't let Sanders take the party. Warren, behind the scenes, working with the people. So, it's like, I want big structural change. Yeah, but the guy who's going to do that is him. And at this point, you're just a drag on him. People don't trust you as much on all these host of issues. Right. You're not polling as well. Your fundraising is going through the toilet. So it's like, why are you still here if your whole point is to help lefties? Jayapal, Polkan, these guys. I think these guys do look at this in a sense of, how can we as the left move forward? I think they look at it in that sense. Whether I agree with them or not, that's why I think they look at it. I don't think Warren looks at it in those terms. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in this race.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what Warren's going to do. Warren may stay in this just to ding Sanders in the first few states.
Right.
She may stay in this
for the long run.
Longer than what she probably should. Who knows? It depends on her model. I don't even know if she would endorse Sanders. To put it in perspective, I don't know what she's in this race for. So I have no idea.
Yeah.
Until, my model is open, but I don't know.
All right. Thank you. Next one for Super Chat is Dilly Y'all
Dilly
357.
Dally, I ran through the alley.
It
I met up
says
with a girlie named Sally from the valley, I think. You remember that? Who was that? Becky Fresh? I have old rhymes running through my head at all times.
I have shit running through my head. Right, I have things running through my head right now.
I just say it because
I'm
I
not
have a
gonna
show.
say them.
Go for it. Speak your piece.
Dill-Y'all 357, thank you for the super chat. Dill-Y'all says this is the first super chat, so thank you for that. Business owners are complaining about $15 minimum wage because workers aren't working their usual long hours, but they don't have to work as hard when their needs are being met.
Yes.
That's just kind of how that makes sense.
God, man, we can't get these slaves to work as hard as they were working before.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah.
we can't, maybe we need to get a cattle prod or something to that effect. Look.
They don't have any will to be worked to death.
People were desperate, and now they're less desperate. I don't know if that's true or not. The $15 an hour wage, look, people clearly, just based on incentives, want to pay people as less as they can possibly pay somebody to do a job. The people who are working for them want to get paid as much as they can get paid to do as little as possible. That's always been the case. It's just the model involved in the process, especially in jobs that you don't want to do. If it's a job that you love, you can sit there and do it for hours. I mean, I fucking love doing this. I could sit here and even when I wasn't getting a dime, I would sit here and do this for hours. But for something that you hate, that is labor, then yeah, you end up having to pay people to do it. I don't know if people are working less hard. I think that's a little weird to me. Hours that they may work may be cut down because they don't need to take as many hours.
Well, that's what she said.
Yeah, but that's not them working less hard.
No, that's not. That
Maybe I
misunderstood.
I misunderstood. I thought you said they were working less.
No, they're working less hours. Less
hours. That's not a horrible
because
thing.
They don't.
So what?
They don't have to work.
So what?
$15 an hour actually covers their needs. So they don't need to be in here working overtime.
It's like, I'm making $11 an hour, so now I have to take 2 shifts, or I have to take another shift at night instead of being home with my kid. Yeah, suck it. My uncle, who's worked his entire fucking life, has to still work. He's 60 and is working 2 jobs. Why? Because he's not making enough money in order for 1 job. So now he has to work 2 jobs. Sick mom, 2 jobs. Now, understand what that means. This is somebody who's in his own age. He has his own history of medical issues in the past. And he is now being dependent upon by his mom in addition to working 2 jobs. Why?
And he's retired.
If he was making $15 an hour, it wouldn't be an issue. He couldn't retire in that sense. I mean, meaning he didn't have the capacity to retire in real terms because he worked his entire life. He struggled his entire life. In many respects, just like these greedy capitalists didn't necessarily want to pay him a decent wage, so he just got paid whatever he could get paid. Same thing with my mom. My mom started working when she was right out of high school. She didn't necessarily she didn't want to go to college. She hated school. But for the most part, she started working. She was only getting paid, I think, $8 an hour when she started. It was little of nothing. And when she retired, I think she was making 14 or 15. 25 years later. Put that in context. The notion that a person can work their entire day and still not have enough to make ends meet because they don't get paid a decent salary. Yeah. And these fuckers are complaining, they're not working the extra shifts.
Screw that.
Good
for them.
What that means is that the only reason they were working those extra shifts before is because they were hungry.
They needed the money.
Yes.
They needed the money.
They could complain to me. It's like the slave owners. Oh, you've taken our slaves away. Who's going to do the fields? You're so uppity now.
Whose voice is that?
They're so uppity now.
Whose voice is that?
Those are the slave owners.
All right. Are you good on
That's
that
the slave owner voice.
Okay, I don't know.
Who's going to do the fields? You freed the slaves. That's how they talk.
Okay.
They did.
It kind of sounds like when you mock me. I think you just have one voice that you do for everyone that's not you.
I don't think that's true. I think there's a slight different octave or something.
Small variations. Okay. Darren Alevi, thank you for the super chat. Darren says, do you think a third major party would be created if the DNC cheats Sanders again and Trump is reelected? Or will people be shepherd for Newsom 2024 and AOC 2024?
It depends on what Sanders does, right? I mean, if Sanders flips out, if it's
flip the fucking table over.
It was
I want him
this is cheating, etc. His supporters, all of these people that were giving him that money, will go with him. And the Democratic Party is over with overnight. understands he's running in the Democratic Party. And he has nearly, you could say, 1 and 2 spots around the world, around the country, in regards to the various pollings. I can show you the New Jersey poll. He's 3 points away in the New Jersey poll. And that's Jersey. I mean, that's Biden territory, right? Well, not really. Apparently, Sanders is doing well there. Right here. 25%. Warren, 15%. What if Warren wasn't in the race? That's a 3-point difference. Warren is pulling 15%. Why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you in this race? If you want big structural change, why are you in this race? You are eating into the guy that can actually win it. Even if 10% went to Sanders. That's 35 points. Biden is only pulling in 28%. If anything, that's going to lose this race is going to be Warren. Look, people can get into the race for whatever reason they want. I'm not rarely one of those people who say get out the race. The catch here is she keeps saying, I want big structural change. As he's acting as if these two people are somehow on a team. Fine. If you guys are on a team, then you shouldn't be doing something that hurts your partner. You've just backstabbed your partner, supposedly, the guy who would have never under any circumstances attacked you. And you are eating into the numbers that are required to win this race only because you are sitting here loafing away at 15%. You have no chance of winning this race. The only thing that you could do is pull the other guy down. So, just saying. But I'm making the thing that you're asking. What was the question? What was the thing?
I don't remember.
You don't remember the question?
No, and I'm going from it now, babe.
What do you mean you got the question? Babe, what's the question?
I really did scroll from it. I'm not scrolling all the way down there. Well,
scroll back to the question. Oh, I mean, I could stop the show and I can go and look for myself if that's what we're doing. All right.
Oh,
no. I'll stop the show. I'll find it.
Hold on. Not stopping the show. You're gonna...
No, I'm stopping the show right now.
There are so many super chats.
I know, babe, but I asked you a very specific question. Let's see.
Will a new third party be established?
All right. So my point is,
I can't find it, but I remember.
If Sanders flips, which I gotta be honest, I have a hard time seeing. But if it was blatant and he said this, these guys are being unfair, these guys are cheating me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and he says, I'm done, all of those people will go with him. Like, this is not a situation where the Democratic Party gets out of this alive. I don't know how it does. Yes, there will be a party. Yes, the party would exist. Yes, the party will go floundering about for a bit. But you'll be utterly decapitated. The moment that Sanders leaves, there will be a lot of people that would disagree with Sanders. They would say, oh, that's horrible that he's doing that, etc. There were some people who say, oh, we're fair and unbiased. We didn't see anything wrong. We weren't cheating, just like they were last time.
Yeah.
But you're talking about millions of people. Think of the number of people that he's pulling to his side in these arguments. Yes, it would drain away support from the Democratic Party. And whether or not the Democratic Party implodes or not, I don't know how they win. I just don't. I don't know how they win a presidential election if people like me pull themselves out of the party process. And they are craving a new party. By the same token, it is difficult to start a new party in the United States. But depending on the popularity of the individual involved in the process, kind of like Abraham Lincoln going into the Republican Party, leaving the Whigs, and the Whigs essentially falling apart. Something like that taking place. Maybe. It's hard to know. But it would entirely depend on Sanders and whether or not he has the gumption, the nerve, the anger.
I don't know if he would do that.
I don't know if he'd do it. I'd be shocked by that. But environment creates behavior, and depending on how egregious what takes place is.
All I can see is him standing at that rally and saying that we need to vote for
Hillary
Clinton and people booing him, and it's like I don't see him creating a third party.
But see, that was 2016, and would you agree with me that there are differences between 2016 and 2020?
No, I agree. It's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing him. Yeah, I have a hard time seeing him do it. That's the catch. But if there was, it would depend on his expectations about what he thought he could get accomplished, and whether or not he thought, But I don't know if he would do anything to get Trump reelected. And that's the catch. It's always a club over the head of how bad does he think Trump is in the context of everything else.
Also, not to mention, if they cheat Bernie again in 2024, Bernie ain't running again.
I
mean, like, he might back to help
honest.
another party start, but he ain't running again.
They can wheel his ass out in a wheelchair.
We
and
said
my black
that in
ass will be out there
2016.
voting.
We said that in 2016. I think there's a clip of something similar being said in 2016. 2020 roll around and he could crawl out here
in a wheelchair.
All right. So Marcus Will, thank you for the super chat. Marcus Will says, "Do we know if AOC has been given authorization to defend her friend Bernie yet?"
What do you mean? For what?
I think he's just saying, has she been given permission from the Dems, I guess?
I don't think she needs permission
her
to defend
friend Bernie. Well, she's not, I guess is what he's saying.
Not defending him for what? Oh, you mean the Tulsi the Warren charge?
Shenanigans?
I mean, I don't know if that's Sanders since hit people out to make that argument of saying, look, that never happened. Is it too over the top to send women out to defend your guy? Now, understand what I mean by this. So, let's say somebody says, Joe Biden's racist.
Okay.
And then Biden sends a black person out to say, he's not racist, I'm a friend of Joe Biden's. Isn't that always a little weird?
A little bit.
Is it just me? I mean, like, always like...
No, it depends. Racist is different than
sexist.
Yeah, for some reason, send a black person out to defend that you're sexist as opposed to...
No. I mean, at this point, sending a woman out to send that you're sexist.
Right.
It's that. I don't know if it's... I don't know if they had to have to defend him. I don't think that's part of it. I mean, for all I know, Sanders would be like, I don't want anybody to say anything about this. I don't know. But he did send his people out to say, this didn't happen. This is BS. I never said this.
Okay, so if Sanders... Marcus had a follow-up. He says, if Sanders got cheated again, why not Tulsi 2024? I think for the same reason that he said, why not Tulsi for VP this year?
Is Tulsi running as a third party? Because if Sanders gets cheated, who else will there be?
And also, didn't Tulsi say she wasn't running
Yes,
again?
Tulsi said, I'm not running as a third party. She said it over and over and over and over and over again. If Sanders gets cheated and they put in Biden, that means that the Democratic Party has chosen Biden as their person.
Yeah.
How do you support Tulsi in that sense, since that's their person? Like, she would have to run third party for you to support her at all at that point from the standpoint of an election. But Tulsi has kept saying she's not doing that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I feel you. I feel you.
Elephants on Coke. I'm going to read this out loud because Super Chat is very inappropriate.
Uh-oh.
He says, Warren can go F a big structural duck. And it says duck, not D. It's a U, not an I, so I'm okay.
Yeah, that makes it better.
A structural duck.
A structural duck.
Pensive TM says, wondering how much #refund Warren cost her.
Oh, God, I am so curious about that. Because you remember... they said that they were increased timelines or something with the refund. They said they were experiencing a high moment of maintenance when people were showing pictures of them doing the refund warrant stuff for Act Blue. She fucked up. I don't know who told her to do that. Honestly, her political instincts are horrible. Warren could have almost won this primary. And the reason I say that is Sanders would have never attacked her.
Right, and she was close enough in line with Sanders.
Honestly, if I was in Warren's camp and I was talking to her and I'm like, look, your strategy of pretending to be him is going great. Just keep it up. I would say,
do that.
Just stay with that. Medicare for all, you just agree with him. You're signing on to the bill. Period.
But
none of this other shit.
Your draw was... Oh, she's just like Sanders.
She's just like Sanders.
So once you started to delineate yourself from him on your own,
then you have problems.
And you weren't putting forth something better than what he had.
Right. It wasn't like I'm delineating and I'm
now
doing better.
You're lying all the fucking time. And it's just a lot of shadiness surrounding you in general.
And then you call the guy sexist. Here's the thing. If Warren
just call me a liar on national TV, you're grasping at straws. Girl, go to bed.
If Warren wasn't putting that out, because Cenk Uygur and Ryan Grimm are trying to be apologists. It's like, maybe somebody else put this out, not the Warren. If that's true, then Warren could have said, I'm not talking about this. This is not a conversation I'm willing to discuss. No, that didn't happen. She could have ended that. She didn't do that.
Cannabis sativa. Oh, he says Warren is a bloody anti-Semite.
I don't know, but I don't know if she's a bloody anti-Semite. Oh, right, because she's in the race. Right. That's like they kept saying, like, well, there's a Jewish man in the race, And that Jewish man in the race has better plans than you. He's more trusted than you on economy and on healthcare and on environment. And somebody told me, I mean, it was just a friend of mine, but I thought it had a really good point that if Warren is still in the race, I mean, she's anti-Semitic. Not saying I agree with him, just saying it has some points. Just has some points. And sexist, by definition.
Because she has a vagina, so
he has
stay out of her way.
Yes.
Joker J says, so Sanders and Yang with Gabbard as Secretary of State.
Fuck that. No, I don't want Yang anywhere near the administration.
White
Fuck him. No.
Do you think the DNC is behind New York Times endorsement of Klobuchar and Warren? Do you think the
New York
DNC
Times is behind
New York Times?
New York Times is a conservative organization. Oh God, there's an awesome clip that I have of the guy talking to Martin Luther King, and he asks Martin Luther King. He says, "Look, don't you think it's time for the civil rights stuff to come to an end? Don't you think you need to stop the marches?" And then the guy goes and says, "Well, the New York Times says it's time for you to stop the marches." Now, this gives you this impression of what the New York Times is. It is a conservative magazine. The catch is the country has moved so far to the right that people think the New York Times is somehow representative of the left.
Yeah.
If anything, it may be the corporate left, that libertarian left. And I got to be honest, this is somewhat, I would even argue, discriminatory. I mean, ultimately, they've just said, we just need a vagina.
Yeah, Klobuchar? Where did that come from?
That's so random. Like Klobuchar and Warren, two opposite wings of the party. But the point is, they just said, they just wanted a woman.
We'll take the women, please.
We'll just take the woman. That's all. That's what we want. I mean, for fuck's sake, make a choice. The notion that you're going to go with two choices is just absurd.
Well, we can't tell which one because there's two vaginas.
There's two vaginas here. We have a hard time choosing.
What's going on with Jill Stein?
I don't know. I mean, they've been attacking her, talking about the woman with some kind of Russian plane or something like that. But I haven't seen anything about it for a while.
That means she must be doing something good.
Yeah, right. I see tweets coming out of her, but I haven't seen anything.
All right. So people keep throwing her name out there, and I'm like, I haven't heard anything about her.
I think it's because, she ran in 2016. I voted for her. I was proud to do so.
I'm a member.
Yep, I was proud to do so. But I haven't heard anything about her recently.
All right. Last couple super chats. We still have some more to go through.
Okay.
Thank you guys. You guys are on it today, and we're going to read every one of these, even if it kills me. It's not going to kill me.
Well, okay, we'll end it on super chats then because we've been running for like 2 hours.
Maggie Smith says Tulsi keeps reminding us of the job description when we were talking about those push-ups and everything.
Yeah.
Jay Wood, thank you. Jay Wood says you should have a conversation with Nico about Tulsi versus Sanders. He says, I'm a Bernie guy myself, but he often makes good points, but no one to push back. Sanders is against BDS too. I never hear about that.
He is. I've heard him say something
like people keep talking about Tulsi being against it.
Look, Nico could be a fanatic for Tulsi. I'm okay with him being a fanatic for Tulsi on this channel. I don't need to have that conversation.
Right.
No.
Let's leave it there.
What? Just to be clear, no negative to Nico on this front. He advocates for his person vociferously. God bless him. God bless him.
Vonzo the journalist. Vonzo says, Justice Dems are paper tigers. AOC can't even answer Venezuela questions. The rest of the squad capitulate to Pelosi. I get the criticism of Tulsi, but others deserve the same attention.
I agree that they deserve a certain degree of attention. Look, they are, at this point, functioning under the Democratic Party, and they have their priorities. Meaning, AOC's priorities seem to be domestic politics. And I got to be honest, I don't hear her talk about foreign policy much at all. Now, I could be wrong on this. I could have missed something that she said on this, but she seemed to pull back on foreign policy. I've heard her make arguments about Israel before she got elected. When she got elected, that toned down. But I don't hear her make much argument about foreign policy. Her thing seems to be domestic policy. So it's fair enough to say that everybody deserves, I guess, a hit on this based on their own value system or what you perceive their value system to be. But I would have to hear her talk about it in a more full-throated way to say one way or the other. But you're right. On the Venezuela thing, their mom, she's like, I don't want to have anything to say about that.
One more thing about AOC, because Old Gringo just gave another super chat. He says, AOC is forming her own financial structure outside of DCCC.
Yes.
She's tired of elites taking from her donations and giving to centrist or righty Dems.
Not just that.
The PAC will be challenged to centrists.
Not just that. So I've argued that there's a war in the Democratic Party. I've argued this for months.
Yeah.
And I made this argument because it had to be. Like, I didn't understand how they couldn't be. All of the incentives that are just in front of the individuals based on what they say they want. Like, the moment that you create a model of it and say, AOC, Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, these guys are trying to get their people in with a very specific policy prescription that is to the left of the Democratic Party, meaning Medicare for all, expansion of Social Security, increase to $15 an hour, climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. The Democratic Party is against those. They just are. So if you have people who got elected on this policy prescription that the Democratic Party is against, then how are they going to get their policies passed if they don't primary some folks? Meaning, you have to take a cadence that tries to get out the dinosaurs that is stopping you from getting your policies passed, especially if you get in this kind of activist way of, I want to make changes. I'm 29 years old. I got energy behind me to spare. Let's do this. I want to change the world. And her thought is, we need to primary some folks. She was very clear about that. Now, what that means, though, is that the dinosaurs who are there don't want to just stand there and let themselves get primaried. The DCCC and the DSCC, meaning the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee or something like that, and the DSCC, the Senate version of it, came out and say, we will sanction any lefty that primaries a right-wing Democrat.
Right.
And it seems to only apply to lefties. That's what I'm saying, a lefty. And what this means is that any group, organization, service that assists a primary, like a AOC or Ilhan or Tlaib, in order to get in office and take out a dinosaur that was there, we will blacklist your organization. Many of these companies, for the most part, live off the Democratic Party or these party structures. So if they're blacklisted, that hurts their wallet. It creates a disincentive for them to help campaigns like AOC, like Ilhan, like Rashid Tlaib, essentially the lefties that were able to take out right-wingers in order to get, right-wing Democrats to get in office. Now, AOC was apoplectic over this because she got it. They are trying to stop people like me from getting in office. This includes Steny Hoyer, Nancy Pelosi, and the Democratic Party essentially choosing the various candidates in the various districts across the United States, at one point telling a guy to get out of the race, we've made our choice. Like, this is extraordinary. So if you are AOC and you know that they are taking a cadence and a policy that is literally there to stop you from, or people like you from getting in office, and stops your agenda. The agenda that you told the people that you were going to push for and that you were going to advocate for, they are taking actions to stop that. What are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to really pay dues to this organization that has been antagonistic to your interests and what you said you're going to get accomplished? Not to mention taking the step of saying we will nuke organizations. It is the responsibility, it is not the Democratic Party's responsibility to stop people from getting into a race or to kneecap people from getting into the race. People of a various district make the choices of what they want based on the needs of the district. The notion that the party is going to come in and tell somebody to get out of the race because you're not the person that we want is fucking phenomenally bad. Now, AOC saying you are trying to stop people like me from getting into the race. By the way, the district may want somebody like her. Just like they wanted her over Crowley, you might have other districts across the United States that want people like her, and the Democratic Party is now taking actions to stop them. This has a secondary effect that means that the only way a Democrat gets taken out of office is by a Republican. Think about that shit. That the public itself, the districts, can't choose a candidate that matches their agenda from the standpoint of the Democratic Party. Meaning they say, I want somebody to the left. They may say that. Instead, the Democratic Party is saying, we're going to stop you from primarying out guys. So the only person who ever gets the opportunity to take the person out is a Republican. They may want something different, and the party itself is trying to stop that.
Right.
Now, why the hell would AOC pay her dues to that? Why would Ilhan? Why would any of these guys? You are absolutely trying to stop what I am. And I'm not doing anything that's negative or wrong. I am bringing democracy to the various populations about people who I would support and people who I want to take various seats. You may not like that, but that's called democracy. Your party is not the end-all be-all in the sense of choosing who people want in the various districts. AOC is not wrong for this. Do you know they told her to get out the party? You had people writing op-eds saying she needs to get out the party because of... None of them wrote a goddamn thing when the DCC or CCC said we're going to sanction various campaigns. You think they did that to Joe Kennedy? Ride mouth Joe Kennedy that had shit on his mouth when he was doing the campaign thing? It was utterly disgusting. He was foaming at the mouth. He's challenging Markley. You think they gave two shits about him doing that? No, they didn't. You think they sanctioned his... No, they didn't. Joe Kennedy is running against Markley, a take out a lefty. They didn't give a shit about that part. But anybody else they care about. If AOC doesn't want to pay her due, God bless AOC. I don't blame her. I don't blame her at all. Lee Carter, here in Richmond. Here in Fairfax, I believe. We're actually closer to him now. But socialists wins without help from the Democratic Party. When they found out what he was, they said, fuck that, we don't want anything to do with you. They chose him. They wanted that socialist. I hope you get my point. They're making their choices and decisions from Washington about who in the various areas that they want to support versus who they don't, as opposed to letting the districts make the choices about who they want. One puts his thumb on the scale. The other one allows the public in the various areas to choose what they want. They didn't want Lee Carter to win. Lee Carter won anyway. And I hate to tell you this, the lefties that win, with you doing that is not beholden to you.
Right.
This is a horrible, horrible choice. You better be very clear when you take choices like this that you win. Meaning the win would have been to just squash the lefts on us. But if you don't squash them, they are going to be angry at you.
Right.
And AOC being angry at you is one of those consequences. They may think that, oh, she's just one person. That's not going to last. She will have more people to help her out on this. So fucking AOC.
All right.
She was a fundraising juggernaut, by the way. The numbers that she was bringing in, she brought in extraordinary numbers from the fundraising that she was bringing in.
All right.
That's all super chats.
I think we are done for the day. Just a reminder that today is Contributor Appreciation. Thank everybody who submitted topics for today via the Patreon platform. And also everybody crushing it on the super chats today, because I had to do a lot of scrolling to keep up. If I missed anything, please let me know. Do you want to check Streamlabs before we go?
We could. I was thinking of something else. More importantly? MLK. Today is Martin Luther King's birthday.
That's fair.
For me, coming to my political awareness, Martin Luther King was a big part of that, believe it or not. James Baldwin, Martin Luther King, Howard Zinn, Chomsky to a lesser degree, even though he helps with the way of the framing of thought, Richard Wolff. And, they're kind of new agey books that go into that and where you're just kind of looking at the world outside of itself. But King was instrumental in that. I mean, I used to listen to his speeches. In fact, I had gotten to a point where I would binge listen to the various speeches because many of his speeches are on YouTube. He would give these sermons. And honestly, it's breathtakingly clear. Like, it's a clarity about it. It's a gravity about the way he was talking about it. What they don't tell you about Martin Luther King is that A, he was a democratic socialist. B, he was radical. I can show you the clips where they are dragging him away in chains, or clips where James Baldwin is, I think it was Cornel West, made the point of how King gets dragged in chains. And it's hard for us to kind of grasp the stuff. He's living in a fucking hostile territory. You have whites who hate his guts. And at any point, he can be killed. His wife can be killed. A nonviolent man that, for the most part, has to take a gun in the house because he's unclear on whether or not his wife and kids would get killed in this process. And yet he never changed. He still did his thing. His argument at one point, when they asked him, like, how do you do this? He said, I saw those kids go out and put their lives on the line every day, like these bus rides. And I thought to myself, what excuse do I have? What excuse do I have? And so he would give these speeches, anti-war, making this argument about the Vietnam. The Vietnam speech is a must-hear for anybody. That Vietnam speech is phenomenal. And it can be played today and still works. The United States is the greatest purveyor of violence across the world. He was making that argument with Vietnam. That shit still works like 40, 50 years today. Prescient in the arguments that he would make, and he would make them in this kind of religiosity way But honestly, it really boiled down to this kind of moral force. King's speeches are phenomenal. There's a speech where he's making this argument about bread, and these are sermons, so I keep saying speeches, but he's a preacher, where the rich man didn't know where he could keep his money, and he's like, that guy's hungry. That guy needs a house. There's all sorts of places for you to keep your money. You just chose not to put it in places where it's necessary. His speeches are so good. And honestly, even Baldwin. Baldwin used to work with King in a lot of the stuff. And to hear Baldwin make his speeches after, I remember at one point, these kids get killed. And Baldwin comes out and he's like, this is not affiliated with King. And he goes on a tear. Like just a viciously powerful speech, making this just basic argument of, if you're keeping people in squalor, why do you think those people won't respond to that? And he was talking about Malcolm X, saying, I understand why those people will go to Malcolm X, because they have every right in the world to be angry. You have a country that have royally fucked them over from the time that they were dragged here in chains, and is now keeping them in squalor and poverty as just kind of a way of going as second-class citizens. King, in his speeches, are amazing. There are plenty of them on YouTube that you can listen to. I would say if you're going to start, the Vietnam speech is prescient. This is MLK's day. For whatever reason, we just found one day to talk about him. But nevertheless, it is a life that it's hard to fathom. And the media sanitizes him. You're going to have all of these people who are attaching their names to him, for the most part, if they were around during that time, would have spat on him. So let's just be very clear. Radical socialist King. And that is the very thing that you are not going to hear from media.
In line with, you said people tying their names to them, Charles Calvin actually said Bernie doesn't emphasize enough his connection to King.
You're right. I mean, because Sanders marched with the guy. I have the picture where Sanders was marching with King. And he's sitting back there where King is talking and everything else. He should emphasize that more. In fact, let's close it on this. This is Sanders at the King rally. And I'm going to play just a little bit of this, because Sanders goes into King's role as a radical, not as, this peacenik guy who just wants everybody to be, I
just want to read 2 more super chats that came through to close it out. Fred Aggs says, MLK said he felt he led the country into a burning house because he prioritized racial equality above class and economic equality.
Yeah, but towards the end, class was it. And, of course, it makes all the sense in the world that if you're a second-class citizen, you want not to be that. You know what I mean? So if I'm an African-American and I feel like the society is pushing back against me, of course you're going to push back. You want equality. That's not, whether that's gay rights, whether it's workers, whatever that is. You want that. The last thing you want to be is corded off into a particular area and considered a second-class citizen with art and literature and all this other stuff, demonizing you with cops, beating you, and putting you in prison and shooting you and whatnot. I can let you hear those speeches back then, and they're just as pertinent back then, talking about cops murdering blacks as it is today. But he did prioritize economics, especially towards the end. I mean, the Poor People's Campaign, the minimum wage thing, the thing saying I am a man and trying to get a minimum wage increase and those type of things. He was doing it. If I'm not mistaken, when he was shot, it was at an economics thing. I could be wrong on that part, but if I'm not mistaken, it was on the economics.
Go ahead and close this out, but just Old Gringo says he loves your passion about this, and people say you're glowing when you talk about MLK and
he was my learning curve. Yeah. Honestly, I used to listen to Baldwin speeches. Baldwin has a speech called the responsibility of an artist, something to that effect. It's about 15 minutes, and he goes into what it means to be an artist and why it's important that the artist has a certain responsibility about what that artist does in a way that it peers into the void, like digging into themselves in order to kind of pull this stuff out to explain the world. Even in the sense that, hey, you could be successful or you could just be honest. You don't necessarily get the choice of both. And even how life comes to you in various ways of offering things. It's a fascinating speech in regards to the responsibility of an artist. I gotta find that. I haven't listened to that in a while. But both, honestly, are amazing to watch. There's also a debate between James Baldwin and Malcolm X that is a must-watch. I even covered that. I did that on this video. This was maybe 2 years ago. Where Baldwin and Malcolm X go at it. King and Malcolm X is different because King he's slow when he talks, and sometimes just in the way that a person talks can come across in a different way.
Yeah.
Like if I'm talking faster and it takes you a longer time for you to make it your thoughts, well, it looks like there's a disparity in the way that people are talking, even though the points may be different. Baldwin didn't have that issue. Baldwin was right in that, even though Malcolm X might have come away with a righteous indignation, if that makes sense. Because Baldwin's basic point was, if you today was sent to Africa, meaning if you left, if you got all of your group, you got on a boat and you went back to Africa, you're still a fucking American. The way that you talk, the way that you act, the way that you prioritize the world, the fact that you like blue crabs, in the summertime, the fact that you, even when you think of your childhood, all of those things are framed from the standpoint of an American context. You will not be African if you get on a boat and leave. And his point was, you're part of this country. This country has always been integrated. This notion that, okay, now we have integration. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
We were integrated from the day that the slaves were brought over. There were multiple whites and blacks in coordination with one another and pretending as if that's not true. James Baldwin's biggest thing was like, this country pretends. It pretends. It makes up stuff. It looks at the world in a way that just is not necessarily true. And as he got older in life, like you can see him in like press briefings with less fucks to give. He was tired. King had just been killed. X had been killed. Kennedy had been killed. All of these people had been murdered during the course of his life while he was doing this. He himself, a gay black man pushing for civil rights, was under threat himself. Yeah. And at this point, he was tired. Angry. Somebody asked him, they said, shouldn't the Negro just get over it? Now, he's like, I'm not trying to take your cup of coffee. Like, his point is, we're trying to make our way in this country. You guys have really fucked us over. And you want to pretend as if the world is not what the world is and deprioritize yourself in the conversation. Yes, it is infinitely conceivable that if you leave people in a horrible situation, that those people don't want to be in that situation. And they, knowing that they are just as equal to anybody else, regardless of the propaganda and shit that you've tried to instill in them, want change. That is true whether they're whites who are dying because they're broke and poor and have to work at Walmart now as opposed to having a better job, whether that's people in this country who are being shipped away, whether it doesn't matter where you are. It's a human thing. It just seems to be part and parcel of being a person. That when there is injustice, those people tend to respond to that injustice. You have a lot of people who just bow their heads. You have a percentage that won't. And that percentage that won't will cause all sorts of problems, especially if they can get a coalition of people who agree with them. So, look, like I said, the Vietnam speech from Martin Luther King is a must listen. And the responsibility of an artist is a must listen for Baldwin. Both of those things are awesome. Let's close out. Listen, I'm a younger man when I talk about UFOs. I'm a younger man when I talk about this shit too. Because it's a facet. To binge listen to his speeches, you come away with like, wow. Like it's like moral clarity. Like moral clarity in a way where it's like, wow, that's fucking impressive. Yeah. Now, whether or not I would have agreed with King during that time or not, it's different. I tend to be on the angry side of stuff. At the very least, the way I process it. Anger is a good thing. It helps you, it clarifies your intentions. But in his case, it's not that he wasn't angry. You must understand, peace is a political strategy. He understood that you were never going to have an armed rebellion in the United States in the way that blacks rise up, a whole 4 or 5% of blacks during that time rise up and, take back the country or whatever. That wasn't going to happen. Anything that you were going to get done was going to get done through this kind of nonviolence movement. And fact is, Malcolm X aided Martin Luther King in this just by definition of Malcolm X existing. You have two poles. Which one you want? The guy that wants to burn shit down or the guy that wants to get along? Fuck it, we'll take the guy that wants to get along. One more thing. He's a person. So there's one of Martin Luther King's thing. He's talking about how one of the kids at one of his rallies gets angry at him. And he's like, as a person, he's like, how dare you getting mad at Martin Luther King? I'm fucking Martin Luther King. Now, he's saying he's like griping to himself about this, like, I've been putting this work in, trying to get this stuff moving. And he says, and he realized it's not moving fast enough. People are in dire situations. It is not moving fast enough. And he goes into this thing of this kind of introspection of, yes, being aggravated by this guy going after him, but by the same token, having this understanding of where the guy is coming from. And it's a fascinating introspection into him as a person. Yeah. I don't know. I love this stuff. Let's hear Sanders. Just a few minutes of this. I mean, it's 6 minutes, but it's not too long. But I'll let a few minutes of it play.
See and hear.
to see and hear. And since you all don't have the official now changed program, I feel like I finally got control again. We're going to begin with the man who will gladly exchange his gloves this morning for your vote. Please welcome Senator Bernie Sanders. And his gloves.
Mitts off. You shamed him into taking the mitts off. Keep those mitts on, Sanders. Fuck that guy. Keep those mitts on.
Let me thank the South Carolina NAACP for organizing the event, and our hopes and prayers go for a speedy recovery for Sister Brenda Murphy. I got 4.5 minutes. So let me start by telling you what you're not going to see on TV tonight. And that is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who we honor today, was a nonviolent revolutionary. He took on the entire political establishment. He took on the economic establishment, and he fought racism every step of the way. And what our job is not just to remember the history of Dr. King, it is to absorb his revolutionary spirit and apply it today. And that means we will fight racism in every part of American society. We will tell Republican governors they will not suppress the vote. If you're 18 years of age in America, you have the right to vote. End of discussion. Dr. King understood that there were the triple evils of American society were racism, were poverty, and militarism. And today we say in America, we will not accept massive levels of income and wealth inequality. We will not have a system where 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, while 500,000 Americans sleep out on the streets of our country today. We will not have a system where we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. We will not have a system where the very, very rich get richer while the poor get poorer, and half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. We remember Dr. King's revolutionary spirit, and we say to the 1%, you cannot have it all. This country belongs to all of us. Dr. King believed in ending war and militarism. And we are sick and tired of spending trillions of dollars on endless wars when our kids can't afford to go to college or are leaving school deeply in debt. We are sick and tired of people working for starvation wages because you can't raise a family on $9 an hour.
Wait a minute, I have to stop for a moment. I love that. Have you ever heard that? We are sick and tired of X. And he's talking about as a focal point, almost as if it's an activist movement with him as a figurehead. We are sick and tired of these people. I love that language. How can you not love that language? It's righteous indignation. It's moral clarity in a political space. Like oftentimes when you hear this language, it's in a religious context, whether it's abroad or otherwise. And I think that's because as human beings, sometimes it's hard to find a rational path out of something. Like you look at a situation, racism is just always going to exist. Blacks are always going to be second-class citizens. And it looks so fixed. It looks like your society is a fixed item. The fact is, though, society always changes. It's a constant. It always changes. Now, to what? Who the fuck knows? Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's worse. But it always changes. But when you're in that, in a 20-year span, it looks like it's always going to be that way. Sometimes it takes a religious perspective of faith in the sense of reality. And that faith to get a person over the hump of rational thought. So, in some cases you would have like clerics giving these speeches about, the hateful country or whatever else. You would have Malcolm X giving this in a religious context. You would have King giving this in a religious context. All different religions, but still coded in religious context. That's my guess. I'm not sure. But it seems like you find religious leaders being the people who are pushing those things forward. Especially in issues of morality, because morality fits within the context of a religious thing. In politics, it gets a little bit harder, because in politics, there is no good, bad, right, wrong. All of these things are just political factors to be shaped, especially from the standpoint of public opinion. Meaning, public opinion matters to you in that context, especially if you're trying to get elected in a democratic system. But in reality, right, wrong, all of those things are shapeable factors of sorts. So if you need to bomb Libya into the Stone Age where they're selling slaves, well, the media is not going to ding you for that. And because the media is not going to ding you for that, is it really wrong? Well, yeah, in a moral sense, especially if you care about life, yes. If you care about a world order that's not necessarily in chaos and fire, yes. But in a geopolitical sense, from the standpoint of whether or not media in the political space will care, no. Politics is different. Morality is not the easiest thing in politics. There's no God to give a perspective on this. Meaning, the universe does. One of the biggest things that I've had trouble reconciling was this notion of nothing matters. It's because intellectually it's like, well, yeah, nothing matters. There's no God there to kind of give it an authority of this is good, this is bad. By the same token, you can also look at that and say, well, there are things that matter. It's contextual. It's contextual to the individual or to a society or to a planet. The same thing is true in politics, though. Because there's no God to say yay or nay, ultimately you have people who just have ideas. And those ideas are either accepted or not accepted. And they're accepted or not accepted for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes those things are just purely incentive-based. That means, though, you can have all of these people with horrific ideas, and there is no God to stop those horrific ideas from coming into play. It is just public sentiment, public will, and political leaders. This is one of argument out of many. I hope you understand what I mean. Like, this is one argument that puts out there that there is no God to say yay or nay. Just like Trump can get out there and put his hateful argument out, and there's no God to say yay or nay. This is what we got. We have just people making choices. Ultimately, what I reconciled it was, the universe doesn't get a choice. The universe doesn't get a vote. Because the universe doesn't get a vote, the value is contextual to the individual or to the larger society. But that means it's a free-for-all. I would make the case, though, that this is more right. Right in the context of what allows our world to be whole, what allows our world to be sane, what allows our world to have less chaos. And at the very least, there's a hegemonic norm in regards to these type of ideas, because otherwise politicians wouldn't cater so much to those ideas, whether they're attending to them or not. So there's some, at the very least, agreement that, okay, this is, at the very least, I don't hurt you, you don't hurt me, let's kind of go along and make our way in the world. Yeah. Whether or not they live up to that or not. But if you want a whole world, this is it. There's nobody that's going to be safe unless everybody is safe. I hope you understand what I mean by that. This notion that you're going to have certain class of people who are in dire fucking straits, and that those people are just going to stay there in dire straits and not say anything and bitch and moan and burn shit down until there's some level of equity in regards to the process. If you want a saner, less chaotic, less inhospitable world, you start here. You make people whole. When people are in dire straits, they do bad things. It's environmental.
We are sick and tired of a government which ignores the existential crisis of climate change. We are sick and tired of a racist and broken criminal justice system, disproportionately jailing African Americans, Latinos, and Native Americans. Brothers and sisters, the legacy of Dr. King is to have courage. This was a man who stood up against the war in Vietnam when it was not popular. This was a man who...
By the way, when he did that, what do you think other people around him did? When King came out against the war, what do you think other people came out with him? He said he had this internal thing where he was like, how can I stand by and not say anything when these other brown people are getting hit by the boot of America in this way? And he comes out against the war. his association with LBJ made that politically dangerous, meaning an African American made a political alliance with the Democratic Party, and they were trying to make some level of inroads in this case. King comes out against LBJ's war. LBJ flips out, and if I am not mistaken, removed the security from King after that. I could be wrong on that, but flipped out. King made this very basic point of, this great society is essentially dying on the shores of Vietnam. How can you have a great society when you're spending this much on the military budget? It sucks away from the domestic priorities. That was his basic point. He realized that it was impossible to separate foreign policy from domestic policy. Oh, I love this stuff. All right, let's keep going.
Who stood up to his own president when it was not popular. This was a man who stood up to the entire establishment of his time. So let me conclude in my 4.5 minutes. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. And if we do not allow Trump and his friends to divide us up by the color of our skin, or where we were born, or our sexual orientation, or our religion, if we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish in the fight for economic justice, racial justice, social justice, environmental justice. In the spirit of Dr. King, let us stand together, let us go forward, let us complete the journey. Thank you very much.
Excellent speech. And you know what? I agree with the person who says Sanders needs to accentuate the fact that he walked with King more. He was chained to a black woman during the civil rights struggle. He wasn't a Republican until he was 40 years old. Looking at you, Warren. He knew what he was early on in the process. These are things that he fought for. He was part of these movements early on. He's part of all of this stuff. He's been there for 40 years. Like, it's hard to get that across. You have an 80-year-old man, for all intents and purposes, who is running for president after being a part of labor movements and civil rights movements for his entire life. And the notion that there are some people who are trying to undercut that bugs me. I really wish he would accentuate that more. And I don't know if they're going to look at it and say, oh, that's kind of craven, or how they're going to take it, but he should do it. That picture of him walking with King should be used. That picture of him being chained to a black woman should be used. Yeah. And it should be used in ads targeting the African-American vote in a very targeted way, especially the older generation of African-Americans. What was Joe Biden doing at the time with Sanders chained to a black woman? Mm-hmm. Those are videos. I don't understand why there's not somebody there thinking
asking those questions.
Well, not even asking those questions. Just, it's almost like they need a residential black person. That's what they need. That could even be its title, residential black person. And they go to him in order to understand the whims of the black community and say, hey, residential black person. Joe Biden is eating our lunch with the whole elderly black vote thing. What do we need to do that? That's what they need. I don't even know, that could be his title. I don't think that's a demeaning title. It's a title that recognizes...
Is that Nina Turner?
Clearly not, because I haven't seen the video. I haven't seen the ad. Now, they put out an amazingly moving ad recently. I'm not going to show that because, we've gone for over 2 hours. But this needs to be accentuated. It just does. I mean, and honestly, that should have been an ad that was cut today, that went out en masse talking about Sanders in the black community with the civil rights movement and all of this other stuff. Residential black person would have told them that. Now, maybe they would have said, oh, he's using Dr. King's birthday for his own ends. That's the risk with something like that. And I don't know the give or take on that.
Yeah.
By the same token, the youth vote is not going to leave you for that video. The elderly vote is already voting for Joe Biden anyway. What's your loss? I don't think there is a loss. So, but if I was a residential black person on the Sanders campaign, and I would accept that gig, just putting it out there, Sanders, I'd accept that gig. You wouldn't even have to tell anybody. You just have to say, look, from time to time, I'm going to call, because he's been aping my ideas. Somebody's been watching the show. Look, I argued a month ago, I looked into the camera and I said, Sanders, trends matter. The trend in the poll is you're going up. That's good. The trend in the polling, you're getting youth in space. That's good. However, you're losing the elderly vote and the elderly black vote. And you're losing that to Joe Biden. Joe Biden was going to cut Social Security, and you wanted to expand it, so it makes it that much worse that Joe Biden is getting that.
Yeah.
You must hit him in his mass. Electability. but
sorry.
I know it sounds funny. No, but you must hit him in his mass. His mass is electability. People think he's more electable. The elderly vote and the black vote. And you need to tear at, rip at all of those things. Even if you get 5% away from him, that's for your better. Even if that 5% goes to somebody like Klobuchar, that's to your better. I'm making the point that the things that he is strongest at, you need to attack it and attack it viciously, like Wolverine in a berserker rage. All of your minions, all of your lieutenants need to be going out there firing at those items. Nothing else matters. Hit that. And what do I know? In a month later, Sanders releases a video attacking electability. Later, now, they're attacking Social Security. And they started attacking, the Social Security thing is a play for the elderly vote. The black vote, less so. But they've started hitting Biden on corruption also. They just put out this ad hitting Biden on corruption. Joe Biden says, it's unfortunate that Bernie Sanders is attacking me. It's a primary! It's a primary! You need to determine whether or not your candidate has a glass jaw. That's the entire point of a primary. He's attacking me. Sanders is punching me. Yes, he's hitting you because Donald Trump is going to say bad things about you. He's going to be wearing a Where's Hunter Biden shirt. I watched 10 minutes of Trump go on a tear about Hunter Biden, and I said Joe Biden would lose this race. It's too potent. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I put it to you to go and watch that and then come away and tell me that Joe Biden is going to win this race. That is vicious stuff. And all of it is true. Every fucking word of it is true. And he can get up there on stage and say it proudly and loudly because all of it is true. A man who lies flagrantly through his teeth is calling you massively corrupt. And he's going to go through your timeline and he's going to point out how your son was pushing for a credit card company while you were trying to take away school loans or stop people from filing bankruptcy. He's going to go through your timeline. He's going to point out how you, the viceroy of Ukraine for all intents and purposes, and your kid with no experience getting $50,000 to $80,000 going back on coke binges at a strip club while making that money with no experience on any of this stuff. It's corrupt. It's just corrupt. And he's going to be wearing a Where's Hunter Biden shirt. That's what they're going to be rocking. And they're going to be screaming that to high hilt. He's tried to cut Social Security. I'm protecting Social Security. I'm Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is not protecting Social Security, but I bet you this. He will be screaming that he will. I'm telling you, Biden is the weakest fucking candidate that you could put up. And the weaknesses are just obvious. He's been wrong on everything. Most of his campaign, most of his career. He's been putting black people in prison. I'm trying to let him out. That's what Donald Trump is going to get on stage and be screaming. He's going to have all of those people that have been able to get out on that First Start program that he initiated. And he's going to have them sitting on the front row. And the guy's going to say, Joe Biden locked me up. I got locked up based on the criminal bill that Joe Biden passed. You think I'm lying? When he was going to get hit with those sexual abuse charges, what did he do? All of the women that Bill Clinton raped, molested, assaulted, were sitting out there on that stage in front row of the debate. He is going to do this. I'm telling you, God knows I'm telling you because it is what I would do. And when I'm thinking from the standpoint of what I would do in a political space, if I am in opposition and my goal is to tear down that other person and I have no restraints, oh God. And just think, there are people who are just sitting in a room thinking out, whittling away at, how do we tear at him? How do we make him look bad? That's the only thing that they're thinking about. And there are no moral restraints or any of this stuff. You're going to see videos. You're going to see ads. You're going to see all this shit popping up about Joe Biden. And Trump, who has no issue with hypocrisy, will go out there and would say shit that is effectively the opposite of whatever he was going to say prior. I'm the guy that's defending Social Security. Can you really trust Social Security with him? And people are like, wait, did he just say that? Did he just say that? Now, after that shit, he actually might protect Social Security just to make the point for Biden. Yeah. It's hard to know. He has no moorings outside of, I legitimately think he doesn't want a war. I legitimately think that. And I can show you multiple instances where Pompeo would have went to war. Bolton would have went to war. Bloody Gina would have went to, or like the people around him would have went, the neocons would have went, and he kept pulling back. He doesn't want it on his watch for whatever reason, even though he would do everything up to the point of starting one. And just because you don't want one doesn't necessarily mean you won't start one. So, let's just be very clear. But Biden, I'm sorry, is the weakest candidate. He's the weakest candidate. But we'll see. It's a interregnum. And the new guard is trying to take it down the old guard. And it's a fight. The longer Warren is in this race, the worse it is for the new guard. She is gumming up the works at this point. If this really is about this kind of big left shift, get out the race and support the guy that's doing it. Share, and subscribe. Thanks, everyone. I was ending it.
Is that what just happened?
Yeah.
People said I look upset. I'm not upset. It's just like we have markers of like when he's supposed to end it, and then he just.
She's tired. That's all.
Goes.
Her energy wears down fast. I'm invigorated by this stuff, so I'm powered by this. After the video, I just fall up. Yeah. Everything I give it all.
Okay.
Like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for coming on. We're supposed to end it with Martin Luther King thing. That's why Mrs. Thomas is displeased.
Well, because he was like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. And then he's like, a whole nother topic. And I'm just like.
Yeah, she doesn't do stage face well. I do stage face real well. I could be fuming and just be like.
I don't fake it too well.
Yeah, fake.
I'm just like, what the? So.
Actually, I don't think I fake it too well either, to be honest. I think I look at it as it's my show. If I want to get angry, I could get angry.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
you
that's
just,
what I look at it.
A whole array of emotion that comes out and finger pointing.
It's honest. It's honest.
The looking down at people and the screaming and the banging on the desk.
My voice, the modulation of my voice modestly changes, yes. But screaming.
Modestly
I don't think
changes?
it's screaming though.
There's fucking screaming that goes on down here.
The screaming down here.
The dogs are like. Everybody be laying their sleeve and. Yeah.
Well, there's 3 floors in this place, so they can't hear me from
be on the 3rd floor.
They can't hear me on the 3rd floor. They can't hear me on the 3rd floor. Like, share, subscribe. And guys, thank you for joining me for this. New year. My first day of work is Wednesday, so that should be interesting. And I'm going to try to do all of those. All of those are going to try to be done here. Now, I don't know if we're going to do a show.
Ones?
I want to do prep ones here. Now, I don't know if the show is going to be on Wednesday, but the prep ones, when we first start doing that, it's going to be live. So, excited. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Thanks.